Your story isn't over yet. There's still a page left.
Hello, welcome to Whatculture with me. It's Scott Tailford.
It is.
I'm Peter Austin, and it's my first ever video with Simon Gallagher.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm all right.
You good? We're here. I'm here to mediate
Yep.
between what might be a rather heated debate. We're here to talk about Blade Runner 2049, and didn't it feel like it? Well, you don't think so.
We're gonna do a versus thing because as soon as it came out, Mr. Simon put on Twitter that he thought it was what was your thing? Long and drawn out and coarse, rough and irritating and all that.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And I was like, madness, and then we tweeted a little bit and I was like, we should do a video on this.
Actually, you offered praise and I said you're wrong
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
without really quantifying it.
You internet commenter, you.
Yes.
Do we want to start with like a kind of a headline opinion from both of you?
Okay.
What do you think, Scott? Like in 30 seconds or less. Preferably less.
I was thoroughly blown away by it. I think the whole point of it is that it offers you a window into a different world. I don't necessarily think it's about character arcs or like specific story beats. I think it's more about recreating that world that Ridley Scott first did back in 1982, and I think it excels in that respect. I think you can delve into stuff like cinematography from guys like Roger Deakins and Denis Villeneuve because it's such an achievement in like cinema. The basic feel of it is why Hollywood matters and why cinema can transport you to somewhere that you've never been before. And if you contrast it against even like Justice League or whatever fast food crap you want to throw on the table, it doesn't even hold up. They're leagues apart. Boom, bada boom.
Justice League's apart.
I'm
Yes.
seeing some Tormund giant head shakes over here.
Blade Runner 2049, as I call it,
Yeah.
is summed up by two words. Not all of that. It's pretty vacant. That's what
Okay.
it is. It looks really good,
It does.
It does.
but it doesn't feel really good. It's not entertaining. It's just an exercise in cinematography, which is fine. Like if that's what you go to the cinema for, if you want to go to an art exhibition, then that's fine. But it doesn't entertain me, and that's why it's not going to make any money.
Do you think it's vacant? Do you think it had content? It had
Yes.
actual... Was it not just a series of long shots and sort of industrial
Self-indulgent.
clangy music?
Well, I mean, it's like the first one. It's very much it has the same tone and the same feel and the same pace as the first one,
Yeah.
which is to say that yes, it's a look into a different world, but within that are characters that interact in different ways that provoke different conversations around the nature of life, the nature of sentience, the nature of like self-awareness, and whether or not like, the idea of a soul. Like the first one didn't really delve into that stuff much. This one totally does. I mean, we're in full on spoiler territory. So
Oh,
we have to
yeah.
go into the whole idea of like whether or not if a replicant could produce life, does that mean that it's granted a soul? Does that mean that it has human rights? Is that a more interesting question than just like, well, can we replicate human life? That's a different thing.
This is fine. This is all fine.
Okay.
And all of those ideas are fundamentally very interesting, but they're not written well into the film.
Right, yeah. The
Like,
questions are good, but the delivery...
A replicant has a baby.
Right.
At no point is it mentioned how that is possible.
Because it doesn't matter.
But it does
Literally
matter.
at the beginning, he says it's
It
a miracle.
really, really does
It
matter.
doesn't though, because if you started breaking down how it happened, it wouldn't be the whole point is that it's a miracle. That's what Bautista says at the beginning. Bautista, if we're being unwrestling about
Bautista,
this. Then yeah, he says like that. The only reason you're hunting us is because you haven't witnessed a miracle. The whole point is that that can happen. You don't need to see it.
Yeah, but the whole film is obsessed with the idea of creation and the creator.
Yes.
And it fails completely to address that one, like the most nagging question. There are two nagging questions in Blade Runner now. One of them is Deckard a replicant?
Right,
The
yes.
other one is, how the hell can a toaster have a baby?
Right.
The first one, you can delve into all the 1982 behind the scenes stuff with Ridley Scott confirming he's a replicant.
Saying that he kind of is, yeah.
Yeah, or you can,
But you shouldn't have to go and
That's
do
the thing is,
homework.
I
No,
think
you don't
about
have to.
these things. Yeah, they should be within the.
No, but that's. I mean, I'm answering your question directly.
Right.
If your bugbear is that you don't find out if Decked's a replicant, you don't need to. That's not the point. The point is that he could be either. That's the whole point of the movie. That it's like the humans could be replicants, the replicants could be humans. That's the whole point. It's not entertaining in as much as like something like Justice League or a more overt AAA action movie is.
Yeah.
But it goes into those themes through its characters, through the exploration of things like Kay's hologram, like hologram girlfriend. She doesn't really matter. She's pre-programmed, as we find out towards the end of the movie. Does that love matter? Did he feel something? Yes, because those feelings transfer across.
I would
It's all
argue that sticking with Ridley Scott, in fact, or
Ridders.
his creations, the latest Alien film,
Oh, it's bollocks.
I happen to not like it,
Same.
but I would argue that at least they they address some similar kind of themes
Yeah.
there about creation,
Yeah.
and they're able to do that in a film that has a beginning, middle, and end. Whereas I actually I didn't enjoy the narrative very much of Blade Runner, or I certainly didn't enjoy the ending. I was like, oh, is that I've just sat through 100 and how much 60 100
For him to
163 minutes.
yeah, for him to go in, we didn't even get to see any kind of reunion, and he just
the end of the then final shot is a reunion.
well, yeah, but it's just it was just that, wasn't it? I'd like to. I wanted to hear that conversation, and I wanted to. I don't know. At the same time, I don't want to look like a really kind of, that I just sit on a couch and want to watch like a car chase and a very easy to digest storyline. Like I'm fine with abstract movies in a general sense, but at the same time, it's Blade Runner, and the original had a lot more of a traditional narrative to it.
The first one, I mean, if you want to jump in or not, because you're not a fan of the first one. I wasn't for a long time.
No, I don't like it. It's better written than this one
right.
was. The biggest problem with it is it has it has some good ideas, like him thinking that he's the chosen child
that.
would be a great idea,
Yeah.
but it's like a tiny little part of a massive film that just doesn't get explored properly.
But that's the point, though, because it's meant to be like how much does humanity and matter when you're in a world that's completely synthetic, when you're in a world that everything's recreated. And that's the whole point of those movies, is to like show you what those worlds are like. How disparate does life feel in those movies? Like how much effort is
My
put in.
life felt pretty disparate when I
But
was
still,
sitting there.
that's why people click with Blade Runner, because everything reinforces itself. Like, yeah, it does feel minuscule and insignificant because that's the point. And they spend so much time building up the world and showing you like the depth of how they discard
Yeah,
trash
but in terms
in
of
the desert or
just in
whatever.
terms of a story, right?
Right.
You're presented
Yeah.
with a hero.
Okay.
In conventional story terms, it doesn't have to be conventional, but
Yeah.
just like tell bits of the story well. That's all I want.
I just felt like there was no payoff at the end, or not a proper. I'm not even saying that I want all my stories to be tied up properly,
No.
because one of my favorite films of all time, and it actually has some kind of similar links with this thematically, is Children of Men, which is about like parenthood and that kind of thing, and it's set in a dystopian world, and that has more of an ending than this. It's still very open because do you know the story?
Oh yeah.
He like sends the girl off to the ship at the end, and yeah, you don't know what's going to happen to her. You don't know what's going to. He's probably going to die on the boat and that kind of thing. But I still felt like, okay, the girl got to the end, but we didn't find out what was going to become. And maybe they're just trying to set things up for a sequel. I don't know. But for the length of the film, I wanted just a bit more of a full stop at the end.
Right. I mean, for me, I got enough satisfaction out of like one, seeing the world unfold. I keep mentioning the world, but I do think the set design, the general production budget
I
is
like that.
incredible.
Yeah.
But
You
also
get that from video game cutscenes.
Justice League. Like Justice League is a
I don't
video
even
game.
like Justice League.
I
haven't
haven't
even seen it.
I'm comparing it to that because it's the most obvious example of the most mainstream thing. No, I mean, I thought 2049 was really satisfying just in terms of picking apart the memory side of it. The whole, like, he was the first replicant to respond to those memories because he was in the right place at the right time, and he could deliver that horse to her or whatever. He could follow up on that story, and that's what made his one story deliver Deckard back to his daughter. Like, that was really interesting, that all the replicants share that memory. Because we know that from the first movie, that they all share the memories. That she happened to design a memory that would reunite her with her father.
Yeah.
And she knows in that moment, because if you watch it back, like, when he realizes that, like, when they have that conversation when they're looking through the looking glass thing, and he realizes everything he knows is a lie, she cries. And it's potentially because she then realizes, like, this guy's going to leave me and my dad. And all that stuff then comes together. So I like that bit at the end. And he then just is like, well, my purpose is done. Because his purpose was always to be a bit of property and just to be a replicant anyway. So he gets to explore this thing of like, oh man, maybe I'm human, maybe I matter more. You don't. And he just dies at the end on the stairs looking at the snow.
You tell the story like that in a condensed form, it's fine.
Right.
You do it over 163 minutes of self-indulgent nonsense,
Right.
and it doesn't work as well.
Yeah.
Like, you've got that core story, but then you've got Jared Leto's character.
Oh god.
He does not even need to be in that film
that's
at all.
yeah, yeah.
Love, his sidekick, whatever. Her motivation is all over the place. Doesn't exist. She doesn't need to be there. She's there predominantly only for a fight at the end.
She just randomly knows martial arts as well.
Yeah.
I know what you mean with that.
He doesn't need to be a policeman. Like
Yeah.
it's all because of the discordant way it's told. Most of the story elements don't matter. Like,
Yeah, Leto's a good example of like how you get to the end and you're like, I feel like things have been left open and not in a kind of sequel way, just in a kind of okay,
what did
happened
he
to-
do?
Yeah,
I mean,
what was
I've
that
seen
for?
people refer to it as a tone poem, right? It's just sort of like it is just a piece of art, self-contained. Like you can extrapolate and go, like, oh, are they going to do the big replicant rebellion war that they talk about? Are they going to do X, Y, Z? And I would say that that's a more modern Hollywood mentality that we assume there's going to be something else. There doesn't need to be, and I think this movie can be self-sustaining by itself. Someone like Leto, I mean, like, yeah, he was pretty badly acted. It was very like, I'm going to be evil, and that's all he is. But that did give another dimension as to he molds these people. He literally talks about them like clay, and you see all the like viscous fluid from that birth or whatever. Like, it's another comment on designing life. Like, yeah, it's not explicitly, drawn out, but it's there.
That's what I think, though. I think, I like the whole kind of, just as a piece of art, and here are some themes and some questions. I don't mind that. But I think they went too far into like, oh, we'll give this a narrative as well, but then they've not gone far enough into that.
Right.
And I just feel like it kind of sits in the middle.
The thing is, I know exactly what you mean, because I remember when it finished, I was just thinking, like, mainstream audiences aren't going to like this, because it is like a $250 million art house project. Like, it is this massive, over-the-top, self-indulgent thing, but it's so much in the vein of the original that it's obviously for those fans. And I think there is things that you can pick apart, but yeah, it doesn't conform to the basic story beats. You don't even get, like, an introductory scene necessarily with, like, Kay as to what he's doing and what he's up to and stuff. You, like, jump to him flying over the valleys or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was only like, I was like 40 minutes in where I was like, oh, I guess this is the story then. And then it was only when he had that like...
But how do you reconcile that feeling with,
Yeah,
this was a good film?
Well, because
It took me 40 minutes to an hour to understand it, but then I realised that nobody else was going to like it, so I liked it. That's all I'm hearing from you.
That's doing what I was going to do with the Justice League thing. That's not that straw man stuff doesn't hold up. Like, I'm not saying that I then went, oh well, it's going to be awesome as some sort of contrary thing. I'm just saying that it takes that long for the movie to ground itself. All that preamble, all that hour-long stuff builds to the fact that he then realizes that he's human in this horrible, disparate world. That's why it matters. They need to reinforce that world. Yes, they could have trimmed it, but it works. Like,
But
yeah,
it's just a first act. Like,
that's
Yeah.
fine.
but it isn't.
Why?
Because
They might as well have called
satisfaction.
it Part 1.
You get it.
I don't. Yeah, part one. Yeah, exactly.
Deathly Hallows Part 1, right?
I mean, I guess there's a way to view it where it potentially could have been a soft reboot. Like, I mean, we don't know what the machinations of how it came together were, but if it had taken off, then maybe this would have been the next big sci-fi franchise. Hence the fact they don't answer the Deckard thing explicitly, and they do leave things open. Like, they talk about a rebellion, war, or whatever. And it's like, we have like those 3 shorts that come alongside it to show like, oh, you can pick from this world. and do all this
Homework.
stuff. Well, it's potentially homework. I'm
Don't
just saying,
watch
like,
Homework.
it's an extended universe if they wanted to pick from it and do other stories. Like, the 2049 story didn't need to happen. Blade Runner is pretty self-contained if you go with the final cut.
Exactly. See what you've just said there? I fundamentally agree with.
Well,
Blade Runner
but-
2049 didn't need to happen.
But you could say that about Star Wars. You could say that about a whole bunch of unnecessary sequels.
But most of those aren't unnecessary because they justify themselves by having a story.
They have their own internal story, I think.
But I
as
think
a general rule.
But I think 2049 elaborates on the story that was presented in the 82 one by saying like.
But
what
I don't
is
think
the-
it does. It repeats it.
But it literally creates a scenario where a robot can replicate, like literally in a biological sense. And it's like, well, does that then mean that they're granted life? That's the question.
It doesn't matter what it means because it doesn't give you the satisfaction to tell you.
But it's the question,
why.
isn't it?
Where do you stand on Leto's character, though? Like, where? Because I think that, for me, is one of the
The
biggest...
worst part. I
Yeah.
I thought he was pretty weak. I like what he represents, and I like how much effort they put into him. I like all his like kind of like Eastern robes and stuff. I like his slick back hair and his little drone swarm. He's very
God,
much like
yeah.
desensitized like tech geek. I thought
in
he
his
was he's a good.
sandstone temple with
Yeah, that was great though. That like because that's in the first one. Like, all, like it's just like it's a callback to all the water and the lighting when he meets Tyrell. But
Right.
I think it could have been framed better. Like that's my thing. I came out of it immediately going like, well, I really like that, and I really like the way it played out. Yes, the whole first hour is very slow, more so the first 40 minutes. But I do like the themes that are in there. I think it explores them quite well. It does it in enough of a way that you can pick stuff out and go, well, I like that character. I like that theme. I like that exploration of what it means to be human, souls and memories and implants and all that kind of stuff. All the hologram stuff with Joy. All that kind of stuff. For some people, that's going to be rewarding enough. Obviously not the majority, but I don't think they wanted it to be for the majority either. But
Well, they made a $250 million movie, so they did. Want it to
wait,
be
it's
the
not just
majority.
maybe like a
No,
thing for
it's a
Denis
good point.
Villeneuve.
It has to deliver Star Wars money.
it's
And
not-
if you
it's
have
not
to
doing
deliver
it
Star
so
Wars
far.
money, you have to deliver Star Wars movie.
Actually, to be honest, like,
you have to have that kind of mass appeal, I think.
that would have diluted what it is. I mean, I'm glad that Villeneuve had the final say on the cut that got released, unlike Ridley in the original one.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, that did result in this like potentially overindulgent thing. But he knew the fans would love that. And
Yeah.
like for me, 2049 reinforced the original like tenfold.
Right.
I do wonder whether the initial critical response that's so positive is because a lot of film critics have been waiting for a movie like this because there's so much mass marketed dreck that gets put out there. It's so formulaic, and that's a lot of those movies are really enjoyable. Like I love things like Civil War or whatever it is, Wonder Woman or whatever. But like you look at something like Blade Runner, it's like, right, this reminds me why I love film, or this reminds me of like a certain film studies mentality that you can bring to it and get more out of it. That's obviously not the mass mentality.
Film studies mentality is very appropriate.
But there's a huge difference between applying that mentality to something like Mother, which I think doesn't deliver at all, unless you really start picking it apart, and something like Blade Runner, which you can tell every inch of that frame has like so much effort put into it, the world building, the characters, like the themes that are in it.
Yeah, but like, look at Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland films. His window into the world, as you said, is like phenomenal. It's unrivaled. Nothing looks like that, but it's also still terrible.
Yeah, but will that be the key difference then? Because it's the way that
it's not. It's not a difference.
Well, no, but the difference in terms of those filmmakers, I would say that the deftness to the way Villeneuve handles his world invites like analysis and discussion, whereas like no one's talking about Alice in Wonderland's world ever.
No,
Like,
but they're both.
the new one.
To me, they're both exactly the same. They both have the exact same amount of detail. If you boil it down to, they did loads of stuff in the background and they put lots of effort into the world. So did Tim Burton. It's not. It's
think
not
it's
a thing
different.
that necessarily matters. This film is impressive.
Yeah.
It looks impressive, but I don't want to. Like, if I go for a gourmet meal, let's say, I don't want to be shown 20 different types of potato, some of which I can't eat.
Right.
But I'm like, yeah. That's really impressive. You've done that. That's quite impressive. But it's not entertaining. It doesn't satisfy me.
Right.
Because I can't enjoy it the way I would if you
Right.
just gave me a potato. Just some mashed potato or something like that. That's a very crude analogy, obviously.
Well, the thing is,
But
like,
that's what it is.
oh, God.
Impressive and entertaining are not the same thing to me.
I just think that there's enough there to pick apart, and it's handled in a way with enough confidence where you go, okay, he intended this to be talked about this way, or he intended this to mean this, as opposed to if Alice in Wonderland's the nearest comparison in terms of world building, there's nothing in Alice in Wonderland that warrants discussion to go like, I know what this is getting at, and I can have these conversations and they're warranted.
There are a lot of deeply untalented, very confident idiots in the world. I'll just say
They
that.
get given a lot of money.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that Denis is one, because everything he's done so far, for me, is great. I'm not actually the world's biggest fan of Arrival.
Right.
I think it's good. I don't think it
I hate the
deserves...
space squids in a row.
I don't...
You could have
yeah,
done so much more.
I don't think it deserves the praise that it got. But to me, you look at everything that he's done so far, Sicario, Prisoners, things like that, and they're great. Like, they're totally conventionally great films.
Right.
This doesn't even look like his filmmaking to me.
Really?
It looks like he's tried to make a Ridley Scott
Ridley
film.
Scott. It's too Ridley Scott for me. Like, I'm not a fan anyway, but as a general rule, I can sit down and watch a Ridley Scott movie without thinking like I'm sick of these like weird kind of pretentiously designed rooms and like
I see what you
strange
mean.
dialogue and I don't know.
That's going to be the
bizarre
crux of it, then.
behavior from people.
Right. That's going to be the crux of it, because like what I would see as like, oh, that's a world that you've built and all these different rules and mannerisms, all that kind of stuff. That's really cool that you thought of all that stuff.
My Little Pony builds a world.
Go on.
But like, you keep saying that it's world building as if
Because
that's
it is.
like every film does. Every film builds a world.
But no, they don't. Not
They
necessarily.
successfully or unsuccessfully, but they do. That's like that's like
Every film frames
the
a shot
least
is a
the
different.
least
What about
pillar.
There's a huge story.
Valerian? Valerian builds a world and has some
Yeah.
beautiful shots.
Have we
but
seen
it's
Valerian?
arguably I've
Yes,
seen
I've seen
Valerian,
Valerian.
yeah, and it's arguably not a good film in terms of
I think argue that's the most charitable use of the word.
It's
arguably
not a
ever.
very intelligent movie, and you can't come out of it and go, that interesting world brought up some fascinating questions.
Well, because it's not written in that way, and it's also all CG, so it comes across as being incredibly more synthetic and fake. Like it doesn't have the confidence. It doesn't warrant the conversations. If we're-
It's
you
a
know.
confident film.
Yeah,
When
it's
I
actually
said about confident
incredibly
idiots,
confident.
Wait, Dane
That's that
DeHaan is
film,
not a
pretty
good
much.
actor in that movie. Neither is Cara Delevingne.
No, but they all act confident about it. The direction's confident. It thinks it's got the biggest dick.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
I think Blade Runner's the same, except it's brain instead of dick.
Right.
Well, that brain, if that's evident in any facet, is why people latch onto it.
But they haven't.
But they have.
But nobody's going to see it, Scott.
It's
You
not
can't
that
just
nobody's
change the
gonna-
reality. to
One,
suit
we're
you.
4 days out. Two, like there's a
Yeah,
whole.
but no,
there's way more
like
time to go.
again,
There are
you have a
metrics.
That's not even my debate,
$250 million movie. To judge, like in traditional terms, to judge it successfully, it
Yes.
has to get to a certain amount on the first
On
weekend.
opening weekend, yeah.
If it
I'm
doesn't
not-
get to
but
that,
this is a
audience
completely
drops
different
down.
discussion. This has got nothing to do with the
It
quality of
is.
the movie. Like nothing.
It's
does a little
it's just a point about whether it's being accepted well, which is what you said.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nuance to that point, though. I'm talking about
Right.
the fan base and like sci-fi fans, and not everyone's going to rush out and see it in the first 4 days. There is time for this to recoup some more funds back. Like I said, Blade Runner itself didn't
not-
become a
it's
thing
not
until
going
it was
to.
on video.
So are you a big fan of the original?
Yes.
And you're not, Si?
No.
Right. Well, maybe that's just where this falls then. Maybe.
Yeah, it could be. I just think I could say absolutely anything to you, and you'd go, "That's the point, though."
Well, I can argue the vast majority.
Which
though.
I think it'll be the case if I have this conversation with anybody who likes Blade Runner. 220.
Yeah, and that was
2049.
that was what I had when I came up against people who liked the original. That I was like, I don't get it. I don't like the characters. I don't really like Deckard. I don't think they go on this story. But then I kind of realized that it's more about the world. It's more about the themes that are baked into that movie, the feel of that movie. Like you can't deny that the new one, especially, takes you to a place and gives you a certain feel and a certain tone.
Yeah, I
It
love
took me
that
to the
bit.
pictures and bored me for 2.5 hours.
Yes, it did.
I like the shots of the people on the street like eating street food and like when he's going up to his apartment and he goes up the stairs and everyone's like yelling at him. You can see like
Skinner.
different people doing different stuff. Like I really like that kind of. I like big crowds in sci-fi movies and just seeing weird stuff going on. But I'll just go back to my final opinion is that.
We should probably end, but we didn't tell you guys that we maxed out the camera.
Yeah.
Maxed out the card.
It's fine.
Bantering.
I think that there are loads of interesting questions and themes raised in this and in the universe as a whole, so in the original film. But they've just like veered slightly towards, we'll also add in like a compelling narrative, and then there's no payoff at the end of 160 minutes and $250 million. Not enough of a payoff
Gets to see his
for
daughter
that
again.
kind of.
She's there.
I know, but I'm fine with if a movie's just totally abstract and just like throws strange things at you or questions and doesn't try and pretend that there's any narrative going on.
Like
but
Mother.
if you start, that's a bad example, but yes, that kind of thing. But if it leads you on here's your hero, kind of a stereotypical hero, Ryan Gosling. He's a cop. He meets the old hero from the last one. Remember that? Let's all remember that. And then you're led on this thing as though there's some kind of end goal. And there's even talk of like, there's going to be a revolution. And then
No, wait.
no,
There's not.
That's just and if they were leading up to a sequel, I think it should have ended on more of a oh my god moment. That a hand on the glass is not enough of an indication that by the way we're going to wrap this up later, just so you know.
See, I mean, yeah, but
It feels like we might not ever see any more of that.
But well, for me, I don't need to. I think there's
Right.
enough there. Like the
Yeah.
fact that he reunites with his daughter, who's this weird half human, half biological, half synthetic thing.
Illogically French.
Whatever she is.
True.
American parents in her story and American parents in a real story, and yet she's French. But that's okay.
She's
because
hiding out.
That's the point,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Do your
That's the
homework,
point.
Si. It'll be
Sorry.
explained
Yeah, if you
somewhere.
check out the short about the French parents, you would have
Yeah.
got it. Yeah, I mean,
That's
whatever.
me.
That for me, the final point for me is that I think there's enough there to pick from. I think it's so confidently handled and so gorgeous that I want to dive into that world and pick it all apart. I get that it's not for everybody. I never thought that it was going to be, but I do obviously like defend against the stuff that says it's an objectively bad movie or it's a badly made movie or whatever. I think that there's enough there to prop it back up. I think that everything that you've thrown at me, I've defended, and not in like a way that I feel is like stretched out. Like these are proper defenses against certain claims or whatever. So I would say that those things hold up. Like I do think.
I mean, I disagree. But
Well, of course you do.
That's the whole point.
But I mean, the comments or whatever will decide as to like how
I guess so.
drawn out our like arguments are. But I mean, yeah, the majority are probably just going to be like, well, what the hell happened in that? But which is what audiences thought back in 1982. So
It's a well-made, boring film.
Yeah.
yes, but
Yeah.
maybe that's okay.
No. Right. I'm just gonna put my
Yeah.
hand on the glass.
Right. That's a good end.
That's the
That's
end
the
of the movie.
Yeah. That's all it needs to be.
Are we not saying bye? We're just going. We're just
No, we're just ending on that.
okay.
That's the end. Will there be another one? Who knows?
Jared Leto? Who cares?